Most people believe that intelligence is only measured by a grade on a test or a title on a business card. They think it is something that only matters in school or during a high-stakes job interview. But psychology reveals a much more intimate, haunting truth. Intelligence is the invisible architecture of your daily reality. It is the lens through which you see the world, and when that lens is less complex, the world becomes a place of constant, silent friction. These struggles are rarely discussed, but they impact how a person moves through life, how they connect with others, and how they survive the chaos of existence. Here are 8 real struggles that people with a lower IQ often face. 1. Planning ahead feels like staring into a thick fog. For many, thinking several steps into the future is not just difficult. It feels impossible. Psychologists call this limited executive functioning. This has nothing to do with laziness or a lack of ambition. It is a literal difficulty in the brain's ability to organize incoming information and anticipate outcomes. When the mind cannot simulate the future, simple tasks like planning a grocery trip, preparing for a long-term project, or managing a weekly schedule become sources of deep anxiety. Life becomes a series of sudden emergencies because the brain cannot see the obstacles coming until it has already hit them. 2. The struggle to follow instructions. Even when directions are laid out in clear, step-by-step detail, the mind may falter. This is often linked to limitations in working memory. Think of working memory as a mental workspace. For some, that workspace is simply smaller. By the time they reach the 3rd step of a task, the first step has already begun to fade from their mind. In a fast-paced school or work environment, this can be devastating. It often leads to forgotten steps, errors in judgment, and the exhausting need for constant repetition. It is not that they aren't listening. It is that their mental bucket is overflowing before the task is even finished. 3. Being easily misled by others. Trust is a beautiful trait, but for those with a lower IQ, it can become a dangerous vulnerability. Psychology points to low pattern recognition as the culprit. The brain struggles to spot inconsistencies in a story or the hidden motives behind a smile. They may accept information at face value because the mental energy required to deconstruct a lie is too high. This makes them prime targets for scams, predatory advice, or emotional manipulation. They aren't just being nice. Their brain is struggling to detect the predator in the room. 4. The isolation of social misunderstanding. Human connection is built on subtext, sarcasm, jokes, and the unwritten rules of conversation. But navigating these cues requires high social cognition. When a mind struggles to decode the hidden meanings behind a look or a tone of voice, social interactions become a minefield. They may misread an emotion, feel perpetually awkward in large groups, or struggle to form the deep, abstract connections that others take for granted. It is a lonely experience to be in a room where everyone seems to be reading from a script that you were never given. 5. The crushing frustration of complexity. When faced with an abstract idea or a multifaceted problem, the brain can experience something called cognitive overload. It is like a circuit breaker tripping because the voltage is too high. This leads to a total shutdown. Instead of working through the problem, the person may give up entirely, procrastinate for days, or avoid the task at all costs. Managing multiple responsibilities or solving a complex equation isn't just a challenge. It feels like a physical weight that is too heavy to lift. 6. The cycle of repeating the same mistakes. Experience is supposed to be a teacher, but that requires strong feedback processing. For those with lower cognitive abilities, the brain often fails to connect the cause to the effect. They may find themselves making the exact same error at work or falling into the same toxic relationship patterns over and over again. It isn't that they don't care. It is that their brain struggles to bridge the gap between what I did and what happened next. They are trapped in a loop, wondering why the world keeps treating them the same way. 7. Overconfidence without awareness. This is known in psychology as the Dunning-Kruger effect. Sometimes, those who understand the least believe they understand the most. Because they lack the cognitive tools to recognize their own limitations, They may appear overly confident in their wrong decisions. This can lead to risky financial choices or heated arguments where they are factually incorrect but emotionally certain. This false sense of certainty isn't an ego problem. It is a lack of the metacognition needed to realize that they are in over their heads. 8. The inability to see the big picture. This is often referred to as a narrow cognitive scope. The mind becomes hyper-focused on the immediate moment, losing the ability to see how different ideas or events connect across time. Strategic reasoning and long-term decision-making feel confusing because they require a bird's-eye view of life that the mind cannot achieve. They see the individual trees, but the forest remains invisible to them. If you recognize these shadows in your own life, there is a fundamental truth you must remember. Intelligence is not a fixed, unchangeable sentence. The brain is a muscle that responds to tension. Through brain exercises, active reading, and the practice of reflecting on your choices, you can strengthen the architecture of your mind. Awareness is the first step toward growth. Everyone possesses unique strengths that a test can never capture. A lower IQ does not define the value of your life. It simply points to the areas where strategy, patience, and effort can make the most profound difference. You are more than a score. You are a work in progress.